Hello, hello, and welcome to Penguins Lunch, presented as always by InsideThePenguins.com. I'm your host, Nick Brlansky, and joining me this week is a very special guest. We welcome on play-by-play broadcaster for the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Nick Hart. How you doing today, Nick?
Doing good, Nick. Happy to be talking some hockey here in the middle of the summer, and it doesn't hurt that it can be two Nicks going head-to-head here, right?
Yeah, I know on my normal show it is Nick and Nick, and when we get another Nick on, it's crazy. So we just got to keep the brotherhood strong with the Nicks.
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. I love it.
So I like to start off all of these episodes, new guest every week. I like to ask this question just because we got to get the tough questions out of the way first. So Nick, I want to ask you, what is your favorite lunch spot in Pittsburgh? Because this is Penguins lunch after all.
Oh, no kidding. You are starting with the hard questions first. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. All right. All right. I'll cheat a little bit. A little bit. I might throw two at you here, but
Okay.
I'll start with one. It's near and dear to my heart, a spot that we always went to when I was in high school, going to school at Bishop Canevin. Me and my friends, me and my hockey teammates, we always hit up this spot. It wasn't until very recently, this past summer, that we went back. I'm going to give a shout out to Wiggy's on Noblestown Road. You're going to leave there, or if you do it right, you're going to leave there and want to take a nap. But just like phenomenal wings, no joke, great wings, big, fat, juicy chicken wings. If you're a chicken wing fan in Pittsburgh and you haven't hit up Wiggy's before, give it a shot. But there's, 100 other things on the menu you can get to, like just delicious fried food, fries, your mozzarella sticks, things like that. It's hard to go wrong at Wiggy's. So that's a place that jumps out to me just because it hits you right here in the old Corazon. But I guess I'll also give a nod to Fatheads on the south side. That's a spot me and my dad like to go to pretty frequently whenever I'm back in town visiting or something like that. We always seem to find ourselves trickling back there. So shout out to Wiggy's on Noblestown Road and shout out to Fatheads on the south side.
I will add those to the list. This is the fourth episode. You're not the first person to give two, so you don't have to worry about that. So you're in the clear there. So I'll just have to add it to the list of Penguins Lunch sponsored places that we've all said that we like to go to. But let's get into the Penguins talk, because when we look at the season, still about a month out from training camp, there's a lot of things that could go right or could go wrong this season. And there's a lot of questions surrounding specifically P.O. Joseph, because he remains the Penguins' top defensive prospect in the system currently. But with 8 other NHL defensemen in the organization, it's going to be tough for him to get regular playing time once again this season. Do you think he's ready to take that next step to the NHL level?
110%. There's not a doubt in my mind that Pierre-Olivier Joseph, over the past 3 seasons, has proven that he is NHL ready. Now, the question that becomes is, as you already alluded to, just the logjam of defensemen that the Pittsburgh Penguins have. It's going to be incredibly tough for really most players on that blue line who aren't named Chris Letang to really find and carve out consistent playing time there. So I feel like in most organizations, P.O. Joseph is a lock to be in their starting 6 defensemen right out of training camp. Given the number of blue liners that Pittsburgh has, I'm not willing to go as far as to say he is an absolute 100% lock to be in those 6 defensemen on day one of the season. But the fact of the matter is, to me, what he's shown over the 3 seasons that we've had him mostly down in Wilkes-Barre Scranton is he is an NHL caliber defenseman. And I hope that he gets that opportunity to show what he's really made of. And furthermore, hope that he gets a chance to go through a little bit of growing pains, because it'd be easy with the stockpile of D-man. Guy has one bad night or has maybe a good night, but one bad mistake. You plug in the other guy in his place. P.O. Joseph is going to have to go through some growing pains as he adjusts to the NHL level. But from what I've seen, I feel like that adjustment will come rather quickly if he has the opportunity to do it.
We saw that kind of quick hook with Juuso Riikola a couple times throughout the past couple of seasons. You would think that Mike Sullivan has a little bit more patience for somebody the caliber of P.O. Joseph, but we'll have to end up seeing that's going to be a big competition come training camp. Is will P.O. Joseph be able to jump maybe a guy like Ty Smith, maybe a guy like Mark Friedman, who's been entrusted a lot the past couple of seasons. So I think that's a very interesting dynamic to watch as training camp comes up, is will P.O. Joseph be able to separate himself from the pack in that bottom 6 or bottom 3, I should say, of the defense pairings.
And if PO is going to separate himself from the pack, so to say, and get himself a regular spot in the lineup, I feel like what a lot of people automatically go to in their head is point production. He was a first-round pick. He was a key piece in the return in the Phil Kessel trade from Arizona. When people hear those two things, they think, oh, well, he's probably going to put up a lot of points from the blue line. Don't expect Chris Letang numbers from Pierre-Olivier Joseph. What you're getting a little bit more of is a guy who is going to stand out because of his sensational skating ability, his ability to end plays in transition. Doesn't matter if the other team's attacking with speed or trying a more calculated approach. I can't tell you the amount of times seemingly surefire 3-on-1 for the opponent didn't even result in a shot on goal because P.O. Joseph shut it down so fast and moving the puck up ice, aiding the Penguins transition game. Those are the areas that P.O. Joseph really sticks out, even if they don't necessarily show up in the form of goals and assists. If we're 20, 25 games, 28 games into the NHL season and P.O. Joseph only has 3-4 points, don't hit the panic button. You got to look at what he's doing all over the ice, contributing to a really, I know it's a cliche, but a 200-foot game.
Let's switch from the blue line to the goal crease in this conversation, because we unfortunately only got a really short glimpse at Philip Lindbergh last season in his first professional year, but he was named the goaltender of the month in October before getting injured. So what I want to ask you is, how close do you believe he could be to making an impact at the NHL level? I don't think any of us expect him there this year, but maybe as early as next season with the Casey DeSmith contract in its final year, maybe he becomes that third string guy that they've plugged in with Louis Domingue and Dustin Tokarski.
I think that's exactly what people need to be thinking. I think if you expect Philip Lindbergh to make a gigantic craterous impact in the NHL this year, you might be setting your hopes a little bit too high, because he lost a full year of development. Yes, he was phenomenal at UMass, and gosh darn it, he was really, really good in that first month and a half with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. He certainly lived up to the hype. And, you know, sometimes with college goalies, they might be system goalies. They put up great numbers, but that's because they play on a team that only gives up 14 to 18 shots a game and only 1 or 2 are quality chances. And that guy just knows how to shut those things down. Philip Lindbergh showed in his time with Wilkes-Barre Scranton, small sample size, but he's not a system goalie. He is acutely aware of everything going on with the play, reads things beautifully, and then has the athleticism to make difficult saves look routine and the athleticism to make impossible saves somewhat possible. So, but he lost a full year of development. So he's going to have to find a way to stay consistent, put forth his best effort every single night, stay focused for a full, I want to say 72 game season, but you know, the goalie doesn't start all 72 games, but there's going to be some things here and there that Philip Lindbergh is going to have to adjust to, which I think slows down his time frame by a year is what Pittsburgh was originally expecting. But he certainly has the talent level to be someone who can be leaned on in the Pittsburgh Penguins goaltending stable moving forward, whether that is when the Casey DeSmith contract runs up. Maybe that is being a full-time backup in a year or two in the NHL. Who knows? That's too far in the future, and I don't have a crystal ball, but there's reason to be very excited about Philip Lindbergh, but you're going to have to be patient because he lost a full year of development at the pro level.
One of our listeners is commenting in. Thank you so much for everybody that is watching right now on our YouTube channel at Inside the Penguins. Brandon says he likes Taylor Gauthier as well as a goaltender, hopefully in the Wilkes-Barre Scranton system. But he does have another question for you, Nick. He asks, when do you think Jordan Frasca will be playing in Wilkes-Barre, and what kind of impact can you expect?
Well, just as we mentioned that there's a log jam of defensemen at the Pittsburgh Penguins level, there's suddenly a log jam of young forwards in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So it's going to be a training camp battle. It's not so often that we get to say this at the American League level. Usually you have some cuts at the NHL level, and then you know who your team is going to be. Wilkes-Barre Scranton's bottom six, as far as I'm concerned, is absolutely wide open right now, with players turning pro for the first time like Corey Andonovski, like Lukas Vejkovsky, like Ravis Ansons, like a Jordan Frasca. So I'm very interested to see how this battle takes place, whether that is grabbing a spot right out of the gate. Maybe you have to sit in the press box for a few games and watch the pro level in addition to practicing to get in. All those guys, I'll throw Ty Glover into that mix too. He was really good, a standout at development camp, so I don't want to go without mentioning Ty Glover. But there's only so many roster spots. There's only so many guys you can plug into a lineup every single night. So I'm not going to say definitively I think Jordan Frasco will be playing for Wilkes-Barre blank. I think that's all going to play out in training camp for us. And I think that's a pretty exciting place to be with these young and promising players who really have to scratch and claw to get one up on one another to not only be in the lineup, but stay there too.
It's weird how the parallels between the NHL team and the AHL team with open spots in the bottom six, and especially if you look at Pittsburgh's level, the NHL level, there's a really open spot on fourth line left wing and expected to be 6 or 7 players that could be fighting for that come September 22nd at the open of training camp. One of those players is Alex Nylander, who was almost forgotten this summer, being brought in last year in exchange for Sam Lafferty to the organization, has a really good year with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and now is trying to get back into that NHL level. What did you see from him specifically last season? And does that give you any hope that he could potentially be back at the NHL level this year?
I'll say this. Alex came to Wilkes-Barre Scranton at a time when they desperately needed a player of his skill set and of his caliber. Back in January, Wilkes-Barre Scranton was dead last in the AHL standings. They made that Sam Lafferty trade with Chicago, didn't do anything for Pittsburgh last season, but Alex Nylander showed up to Wilkes-Barre Scranton and immediately starting putting pucks in the net or helping teammates put pucks in the net. His injection of skill and hockey sense, acumen in the offensive zone was something that was sorely missed by Wilkes-Barre Scranton last year. And I'm not saying he single-handedly pulled the team out of the basement of the AHL standings, because everyone in this locker room here in northeastern Pennsylvania last year bucked up big time. And when the going got tough, they got going to pull themselves back into the playoffs, even though the AHL had an expanded format last season coming out of the pandemic. Even in a normal year, normal playoff circumstances pre-pandemic, Wilkes-Barre Scranton would have made the playoffs. Nylander was a big part of that because he's so smooth with the puck. He sees the offensive zone, not only what he can do, but also where his opponents are going to be, where his teammates are going to be, 1-2 steps ahead. And it has led to some really creative and eye-popping scoring opportunities. The skill set is a big reason why he was taken so early in the first round by Buffalo once upon a time, by former Penguins front office man Jason Botterill. He's coming off of a very significant surgery that cost him his entire 2021 season. So you're kind of wondering, okay, what's his speed going to be at here? He can fly through the neutral zone. When he wants to turn it on and dial it up, he'll go to blue line in the blink of an eye, and now you have a controlled zone entry. There are times after practice where he'll just be by himself, skating the blue line, skating the red lines, and he's taken off. So I don't think his lower body is bothering him that much at all. It's just a matter of, like a lot of players, finding that consistency. That 1920 season with Chicago, he spent the entire year in the NHL, and he was a very meaningful player to them in their bottom six, kind of a Swiss Army knife, could slide up and down the lineup. That might be what he becomes for Pittsburgh too. At the end of the day, you're leaning on him for offense, but he's learned how to apply himself in other ways too, so that if he's not scoring, he's not a completely useless player. How to be hard on pucks, how to be strong on the back check. It's just doing it consistently night after night after night. If he can do that, I see no reason why Alex Nylander can't carve himself out a spot in Pittsburgh.
Now, I think that when you do comparisons, it is almost unfair to always one half of the comparison. But what you were describing right there sounds like what Evan Rodriguez ended up doing for the Pittsburgh Penguins last season. Now, with Rodriguez becoming somewhat of a cult hero, it's kind of unfair to put that on Alex Nylander's shoulders, but it sounds like he could be a similar factor if he's playing at the top of his game.
Yeah, that's the thing. And once again, with Evan Rodriguez, I think something that plagued him early in his career before he achieved cult status was probably consistency. He would flash it here and there, but couldn't really grab a hold of things in Buffalo. He came to Pittsburgh, and even if he wasn't scoring goals at the rate that he was last season for the Penguins, he was still finding ways to contribute in other ways. Mike Sullivan knew he could put him first line wing, third line wing. You could shuffle him all around the lineup and know he's going to find a way to probably make a positive impact on the game. That's what Alex Nylander is trying to figure out how to do that consistently, because we know, and we saw it firsthand last year in Wilkes-Barre Scranton, from the moment he got here in January all the way through the Calder Cup playoffs, how long Wilkes-Barre Scranton lasted, is that he can show up and score in big moments. It's about what are you doing other than in those big moments. Some nights, he was a tremendous player for Wilkes-Barre Scranton. Other nights, you had to ask yourself, where is Alex Nylander? Where was he tonight? If he figures that out, I don't think he'll be in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. I think he will be that Swiss Army knife type player for the Pittsburgh Penguins or somewhere else in the NHL.
You mentioned earlier in your one answer about Nylander is that Wilkes-Barre Scranton had a rough start to the season, but were able to turn it around about halfway through, get things together, and get into the postseason. I think one player that epitomized that last season, if anybody followed along, was Samuel Poulin. He had a Jekyll and Hyde season, and I think that might be understating it to that extent. He finished with 16 goals, 37 points in 72 games. What do you think happened that changed his second half and turned his season around?
A lot of personal responsibility. If I had to boil it down to a very simple answer, and I'll give you the more long-winded answer, and it's that Sam came into his first season as a pro with a ton of expectations. As you know, first-round pick. Until Owen Pickering this past summer, Sam Poulin was the only first-round pick that the Pittsburgh Penguins made in something like a 7-year span.
Since Kapanen.
Exactly, who got traded away and then ultimately returned. But there's a lot on that young man's shoulders to begin with. A lot of expectations externally and probably internally too. He had a tough time adjusting to the pro game. It's not juniors anymore when you get here to the American Hockey League. And I know some people might be thinking, well, it's the minors. It's not the NHL. No, you're right. It's not. It's a step below. But you're playing against grown men. Grown men who have experience, who have learned some of these hard lessons already, guys who are fighting with everything that they can to get to the NHL. It's intense down here. He had a difficult time adjusting, whether that's little details, whether that's the consistency, that C word I keep bringing up again. He had a tough time finding it, and it got to a point when the Penguins were really in the doldrums of their season in December and early January, where he was making far too many mistakes with and without the puck. Penguins head coach J.D. Forrest had to sit him down. Healthy scratch. First-round pick. Remember? There were high expectations for this kid. He had to sit a game up in Hershey at Giant Center in the press box. He didn't take too kindly to that. And I don't mean he got upset. I mean, he started to take on a lot of personal responsibility. Those messages that the coaches were trying to hammer through to him, maybe, it wasn't sinking in as much before he had to be taken out of the lineup. Then those messages start sinking in a little bit more. You start applying them a little bit more on the ice. And it was night and day, Nick, from that healthy scratch towards afterwards. He was a force below the goal line, along the boards. He's so good on the forecheck, so dang disruptive. And then puck started going in for him too. And then his confidence gets up. He's making smart decisions with the puck, making smart decisions without the puck. They actually moved him from the wing to center. If you're trying to shelter a player from having responsibilities, moving him to the middle of the ice is usually not the way to do it. But he ends up getting more touches that way. And once again, now more confidence comes, more responsibility comes. And he found his way to navigate through it where he was another integral player in Wilkes-Barre Scranton's midseason turnaround. And I'm fascinated to see how that now translates to the beginning of year 2 as a pro, because does he pick it up with that same amount of confidence? Does he have to sort of battle through some tough times early in the year before he finds that midseason form that he had last year? Or is he just going to hit the ground running? I'm very excited to see what Sam Poulin has in store for us in year 2.
Well, you're tuned into Penguins Lunch on Inside the Penguins YouTube channel. I'm joined here by the broadcast voice of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Nick Hart. Now, Nick, before we get to my last little quick segment, it's called Quick Dishes, just rapid fire questions. We have another listener question from Brandon that I figured I'd want to pose to you as well. He says, from what I've seen, and I don't know if it's a popular opinion, between Evan Rodriguez and Tyler Mott, which would you want to see come in as a PTO tryout contract?
Oh, okay. Good question. I guess I get to sit in the general manager's chair for a second here. No offense to Tyler Mott. I guess, there's a little bit of that cult hero status and familiarity with Evan Rodriguez where, I'd like to see E-Rod back. He's a nice guy in the locker room, gets along with all of his teammates. We mentioned the aforementioned trust that he has with the coaching staff. That seems like a guy that would seamlessly wiggle his way back into the Penguins lineup and make a positive contribution when he's there. I also see the other side of the coin where people who see, this is much discussed, Nick, you know all about it, first round exit after first round exit, regardless of how much better Pittsburgh was by every calculable metric in those series, they're still going home early. You got to change something up. If you bring back the same team over and over again, are you expecting the same results? So that would be the one argument that Tyler Mott has over Evan Rodriguez. He's a different look. different player, brings a different kind of zest or zeal to things. But with Erod, you know what you're getting. You're getting a good teammate and a very versatile player. So I guess down to those two, I'm taking the guy who is a known commodity, not only on the ice, but in the locker room. But we're splitting hairs on PTOs now at this point, aren't we?
Yeah, especially whenever you look at the fact that it would be a PTO. And when I'm looking to sign something like that, if I was ever given the opportunity to be a general manager, which won't happen, but still, if I was given that opportunity at a PTO level, I'm taking the guy that has higher upside. And that's Evan Rodriguez, who has shown that he can be a top 6 caliber guy at the top of his game, where Tyler Mott, albeit a very good penalty killer, a very good forechecker, is never going to be that guy that can fill in like Rodriguez did at one point as the first line center for the Pittsburgh Penguins last season. Now, if that happens for an extended period, you're kind of screwed anyway. But still, you have a guy that is able to slot into there, which is why I think that's another good thing that goes in Rodriguez's favor. Not only that, I was talking to Josh Getzov on the last episode of this, and he said, listen, if Mike Sullivan had the ability to bring back Evan Rodriguez purely based on whether or not he wants to, he would have already been signed, because that's how much the coaching staff love to have Evan Rodriguez on the lineup. So if it's between the two, I also lean Rodriguez as well.
And let's look at things now from Evan Rodriguez's perspective for just 1 minute here. You have this great season last year. Career highs across the board. You, like you said, that run there where he was right at the top of the Penguins lineup, scoring seemingly unendingly night after night after night. You go into this summer thinking, this is my chance to cash in. I'm not saying he's getting a Cale Makar level contract, but he's probably thinking, this is my best opportunity to get the most money that I've seen in my professional career. And that deal still hasn't come around yet. If you're Evan Rodriguez and you do have to settle for a PTO somewhere, you probably are going to make your choice based on who has the most bank to give you, who has the most cap space to give me a little bit of dollars and cents here and there. I'm not saying that is what he's thinking, because familiarity with the organization and the coaching staff probably, I mean, that's why Evan Rodriguez came back last summer anyway, because he wanted to be back with the Pittsburgh Penguins. This summer, I wouldn't blame him if he basically went to the highest bidder at this point. Even if he has to go on a PTO, who can give me the most money and the most opportunity after that tryout? Because I know my tryout's going to result in an NHL opportunity. That's, if I'm Evan Rodriguez, that's probably what's being going back and forth, a little tennis game in my head.
Honestly, we don't have to dive into this. A team that I think he would fit really well on is the Seattle Kraken. They are just built with basically Evan Rodriguez is bringing in Oliver Bjorkstrand this summer. They're a bunch of players. While they don't have the top end talent, they're a young team. They're a fast team. They're going to be a really fun team at the forward position. So I would, if I was Rodriguez, that might be a place that I'm circling. But Nick, let's go through quick dishes, which are just a handful of rapid fire questions, some hockey related, some not hockey related, but let's get it ready. Are you ready for it?
I don't know if I'm ready, but I say bring it on.
The first question I want to ask you, what is a more exciting time of the hockey calendar, the beginning of the regular season or the beginning of the playoffs?
Playoffs, hands down. I mean, the beginning of the regular season is always great. You get those butterflies in your stomach. I know every hockey fan goes through summer waiting for hockey to start again, but once you have games on every single night, you forget how much you missed it. It's just a blast. But the playoffs are numero uno. Who are we kidding here? The intensity of the playoffs, the way everything ramps up, the value of every single shift gets magnetized. There's nothing better than that. Absolutely nothing better. With all due respect, and I say with all due respect, to the start of the regular season, it's playoffs 8 days a week.
All righty. Well, next question I have for you, not hockey related. What is the better summer cookout food? Burgers or hot dogs?
Burgers. I feel like, and this is just me personally, you find a little bit more consistency with a burger. Like the ceiling of a good burger on the grill might be higher than that of a good dog on the grill. You get someone who cooks your dog a way you don't necessarily like. Now it's, it's okay. Like you're going to be hard pressed to find a bad dog, but I just lean burger. Maybe I don't even need to explain it that much. I say burger.
I agree. And you know what? You talked me into it. I'm making burgers on the grill tonight. There we go. Next question. What position would you play if you were in the NHL?
Oh, wing, baby. Put me on the wing, fly me down the boards, F1 on the forecheck. gnash my teeth back and forth, create some problems, and then get off the ice and let the skill players do something after that.
Brandon Tanev type.
Sure, why not? I wish I could skate like Turbo.
That would be amazing, honestly. Although I might not want to be able to see ghosts as amount as he has, but I'll take the hockey skill.
Have you seen, who was it? The running back for the Seattle Seahawks? Like, now this is a pervasive thing, and now sports culture is to do the Tanev basically.
DJ Dallas is a big fan of
Dallas. Thank you.
Seattle Kraken.
I couldn't think of his name.
The only reason I know it is because they played the Steelers that week.
Right? Go figure. Yeah.
Better summer trip, camping or going to the beach?
Beach. And I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of either. Not
Really?
a big fan of either. It's the beach is great when you're at the beach, but there's a lot of post beach, like there's sand everywhere, and you got to be washing this off. Plus, you never feel yourself get burned when you're at the beach. It's only hours later the next day. In my case, I'm white as a ghost. Whatever Tanev was seeing behind the camera was probably someone looking like me. I burn so easily. But camping, I don't get it. I don't get it. We have evolved to the point where we have houses. We have air conditioning. Camping doesn't make sense to me. I have a wonderful mattress in my bedroom. I'm not sleeping on the floor in a tent at the risk of being mauled by some sort of animal out there. Camping does nothing for me. A hike, I can do a hike. I'll hike all day, but I'm going home and sleeping in my bed. So of the two, I'm taking the beach.
Well, you talk about evolution. We have evolved to where we have straws now, but still there's people that use hot dogs instead.
Do we really want to get into this right now? Do we really want to get into this? My fear is, so that guy who got recorded at the Yankees game, is that what it was? Yankees game, doing the beer straw hot dog. He's not the first guy to come up with that. He's the first guy to get caught and have it plastered all over social media. There are other people living in our society that think that is an acceptable move. That's a no guy from me. No guy.
I mean, I put it out online already. I don't drink beer with a straw. I think that's weird, let alone using a hot dog as your straw anyway.
What an overlooked element of this discussion is the fact that he's drinking beer through a straw at all. I've been so obsessed with the hot dog and the process of poking holes in it and then sipping your Miller Lite, Bud Light, whatever it was, your $16 beer that you bought at Yankee Stadium, 16 if maybe you're going on a bargain night, drinking it through a hot dog. I didn't even consider the move of using a straw at all. It's bananas.
You might as well put some ice in it too and just complete the trifecta there. And the last question, that we got a little off topic. That's my fault, though. I blame myself.
That's what happens with the dishes, baby. Quick dishes. Let's go.
Exactly. The last quick dish I have for you. Which would you rather do? Golf with Mario Lemieux or fish with Sidney Crosby?
Oh, good question. I'm probably going to embarrass myself both ways. I'm fearful that the big guy will get frustrated with me, slowing him down on the golf course. I'm just spraying balls all over the place. Like, I am not a golfer by any means. I'm also no fisherman, but I feel like I can just go out on the boat, throw on some tunes, even if we don't catch anything, some good conversation. So I'll take fishing with 87 instead of upsetting Mario Lemieux on the golf course for 18 holes.
Well, listen, you're talking to somebody that's good day on the golf course means I only lost 2 sleeves of golf balls between 1 to 18. But Nick, thank you so much for joining me on Penguins Lunch this Wednesday. Let all the listeners know where they can find you and what you have coming up for this next season.
Surprisingly, for a guy who's in media and PR, not that active on social media, but you can find me on Twitter @_Nick Hart. I'm a little bit of a boring follow in the off season, but you'll definitely get your Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Pittsburgh Penguins AHL affiliate news with me there. Once again, that is @_Nick Hart. Might as well, while you're at it, follow the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins on every social platform. We are very present everywhere else @WBS Penguins. Follow us there. It'll be very easy, much easier to keep up with all of the Penguins prospects, who's coming up, who's hot, how the team is doing by following those accounts. I'll also give a shout out to Philip Hollander, because that's a guy we didn't get a chance to talk about here on this show. But don't be surprised if Philip Hollander's not knocking on the door, but banging at the door at training camp this year for one of those spots in Pittsburgh's bottom 6.
We'll call that a nice, juicy little dessert here on Penguins Lunch. But Nick, thank you so much for joining again.
No, it's been a pleasure, Nick. I'm not going to find many chances where I turn down a chance to talk hockey, especially in the summer.
Sounds good. Well, I guess that means we're just going to have you back on.
Bring it. More quick dishes. More quick dishes.
Sounds good. Thank you again.